What's going on, everybody? RJ Ochoa here from SB Nation's bloggingtheboys.com. We hope all is well wherever you are. We hope you're happy, safe, healthy, and that you are ready for the Dallas Cowboys to be back in action in just a couple of days. I'm putting this video together for you on Monday, November 27th, and the Cowboys will, in fact, be playing once again this Thursday, November 30th. It's the 30th, right? Yeah, November 30th on Thursday night football. We're in the middle of the annual stretch where the Cowboys play on Thanksgiving Day, and then, of course, 7 days later on Thursday Night Football. This week, it'll be the Seattle Seahawks, who the Cowboys are going to be playing. And I've been telling you for a little while, both on the Blog of the Boys YouTube channel, which is where you are right now. Please subscribe down below. And on the Blog of the Boys podcast network, as well as all over social media and bloggingtheboys.com, that this is kind of low-key the most important remaining game on the schedule for the Cowboys. And we're going to talk about that right now because we're going to talk about the state of the overall NFC playoff picture following all of the action from Sunday in Week 12. I know we were all rooting for the Philadelphia Eagles to lose, and despite being pushed to overtime by the Buffalo Bills, that did not happen. I wrote an article about this kind of overall topic as well, and the Seahawks topic if you want to check out bloggingtheboys.com, or you can sit back, relax, and I'll walk you through it. So this is the state of the NFC before Monday Night Football. The Minnesota Vikings are playing. They're hosting the Chicago Bears. The Vikings about 3-point favorites depending on where you look, so they're expected to win that game, which means they will likely hold on to the 6th seed where they're at. If you're newer to NFL fandom, a real quick explainer, those top 4 seeds are the current division leaders, and there are 3 wild cards in both conferences, the NFC and AFC. For the purposes of this discussion, we're looking at the NFC specifically. The Philadelphia Eagles have a commanding lead, not just in the NFC East, but for the number 1 seed overall. They are 10-1 at the moment. They still refuse to lose. It is so annoying, but the San Francisco 49ers, this is a bit of a change, are now the 2 seed by way of the Detroit Lions, the 3 seed at the moment, losing on Thanksgiving Day at home against the Green Bay Packers. There has been a change in the NFC South as well. That 4th seed there, the Atlanta Falcons, defeated the New Orleans Saints on Sunday, and they are currently leading their own division. The Cowboys picked up some help. We talked about this last week with the Seahawks losing to the Rams, the Vikings obviously, still kind of trying to figure things out, and the Cowboys winning themselves. This was, of course, the win against the Carolina Panthers entering the week of Thanksgiving. The Cowboys have a bit of separation there for that 5 seed. Again, the Vikings will probably win on Monday night, though, but even then, Dallas will still be clear of them. The Vikings are set to be on their bye this coming week, so they'll obviously, in all likelihood, be 7-5 as the Cowboys get set to host the Seahawks, who are currently that 3rd wild card team. Those bottom 3 teams, 8, 9, and 10, the Packers, Rams, and Saints, those are technically the teams in the hunt. But the reason that Thursday's game against Seattle for Dallas is so important is we're about to talk about how, well, let's go ahead and get to it here. These are the remaining schedules for both the Cowboys and the Eagles. Cowboys on your left, Eagles on your right. As you can see here, the Cowboys are playing the Seahawks on Thursday night, and then they host the Eagles. And if I asked you, and I worded it this exact same way a few weeks ago, if I'd asked you to say what's the most important remaining game on the schedule for the Cowboys, most people would have said the game against the Philadelphia Eagles on Sunday Night Football that night on December 10th. But that is probably not going to be the case, and it's because of what we're seeing from the Eagles. A lot of Eagles fans referred to this stretch of time starting on November 5th, that home win for them against our Cowboys, as a bit of a gauntlet. The Eagles have played the Cowboys, the Chiefs, and the Bills back to back to back. Of course, the bye week sandwiched in there. They get the Niners on Sunday, then they visit the Cowboys, as mentioned, and then the Seahawks, who are currently a playoff team, as mentioned. But you look at those final 3 games of the season for the Seahawks, right above me here, for the Eagles, the Giants, the Cardinals, and the Giants. I know the Cardinals have been kind of cute with Kyler Murray coming back, but I think we all expect, if we're being fair and rational and just honest, I think we all expect the Eagles to win those final 3 games at the very least. So even if the Eagles lose to the Niners and lose to the Cowboys, that would only put them at 3 losses on the season. The Cowboys are currently sitting on 3 losses on the season. This means the Cowboys would have to win out and hope that the tiebreakers get pushed to a degree that they work out in their favor, but they probably wouldn't. So that's what I'm saying. In all likelihood, the overwhelming likelihood is, in fact, that Dallas is going to be a playoff team, but as the 5 seed, the top wild card, or a wild card in general, with the Eagles winning the division. If you don't believe me, this is from New York Times' playoff odds simulator, whatever you want to call it. The first column that you're looking at here, where the Eagles, you see 10-1, then all the kind of win probability, the greater than 99%. That first column is your odds to be a playoff team. So you look at the Eagles have almost 100% certainty to be a playoff team at this moment moment in time. The Cowboys, a measly 99%. The second column is the odds to win the division. The Philadelphia Eagles have a 94% chance of winning the NFC East. Again, it would take a just catastrophic collapse from the Eagles at this point, which is possible, right? It's the NFL and anything is possible, but we deal in rational thoughts here and probable thoughts. We're living in the highest likelihood, highest probability of things, which is why the Cowboys only have a 6% chance of winning the NFC East. Subsequently, the third column is odds to have the first round bye in the NFC, and obviously the Eagles are in pole position for that. And the final one is odds to reach the Super Bowl. So as we go back to the standings here, it's really unlikely. And I hate to say that, but we've got to kind of come to terms with this for our sake and for the sake of reality. It's really unlikely that Dallas is going to catch Philadelphia in the NFC East race. And that's not Dallas's fault. It's just Philadelphia remains unflappable, and it's really frustrating and annoying. But that being said, if the playoffs started today, the Dallas Cowboys would be the top wild card in the NFC and would visit the fourth seed, which is the winner of the NFC South in all likelihood, which was the case last year. If you recall, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers did win the NFC South last year and did so with a record below 500. Well, the Atlanta Falcons are currently leading the NFC South with a record below 500. If you have a preference on who you would like the Cowboys to play in that scenario, that's up to you. I really don't care if the Falcons win the South, if the Saints manage to win the South, if the Buccaneers somehow get hot and win the South again. I think it's all kind of a moot point. Shout out, of course, to Joey Tribbiani. And so I think that works out really well for the Cowboys. And if we go back to the remaining schedules here, and I know that this has the Eagles schedule as well, but this game against the Seahawks that Dallas is about to play is really significant because if the Cowboys can win this game, they get to 9-3. But not only do they get to 9-3, they get a win against the Seahawks. That pushes the Seahawks to 6-6, and that increases Dallas's lead, obviously, and gives them the potential head-to-head tiebreaker over the Seahawks. If we presume that Minnesota wins on Monday night tonight, the day that you and I are talking here, unless you're watching this on Tuesday, if we presume that Minnesota wins, they're going to be 7-5 at the bye week. If we give Dallas the win on Thursday night, they'd be 9-3. They'd be 2 games clear of the Vikings, and they would be 3 games clear, 3.5 games clear if you give the Cowboys that head-to-head tiebreaker over the Seahawks. A win on Thursday Night Football doesn't literally, but almost effectively clinches the 5 seed for the Cowboys. And so as we go back to the remaining schedules here, the Cowboys obviously have that game against the Eagles, but even if the Eagles lose to the Niners on Sunday, this coming Sunday, they can still lose to the Cowboys and walk out of AT&T Stadium with the lead in the NFC East. They have bought themselves that much room for error with all of these wins that have been really frustrating to watch them get. So that being said, the Cowboys do still have to go to Buffalo, and I think a potential silver lining to the Bills' loss in Philadelphia, the Bills, if you're unaware, play the Chiefs this coming week, in a couple of weeks. And the Bills season might be over. The Bills might have punted on the year by then. That might not be a feisty game for Dallas. And similarly, if that winds up being the case, Miami could have a kind of clear lead in the AFC East and therefore not be super worried about winning that game. I know I'm getting ahead of myself, but my point is as we look further and further and further down the line, further down the final 6 weeks of the season, the Cowboys will probably, in all likelihood, not be in a position to win the NFC East, and they will probably, in all likelihood, therefore not be in a position to clinch the number 1 seed in the NFC. So even though the Cowboys will not have a bye, they will probably be in a position to kind of manufacture their own in that Week 18 game against the Commanders. They can rest starters, they can whatever. I know that the Cowboys have approached that differently in the past, but again, that's why Thursday's game against Seattle is so big. If Dallas can pick up that win, that potential head-to-head tiebreaker, and obviously push Seattle down to 500, everybody will laugh, and everybody on Friday morning will say how the Seahawks are 500, despite the fact that Dallas would have beat them when they were above 500. You know how the way the internet works. This will be a massive boost. This is, I hate to say it because I know we all want the Eagles game to be important and to be fun and to be filled with juice and narrative and all sorts of things. But the reality is if you look at the remaining schedules and consider that the Eagles are in all likelihood going to win those final 3 games, the most important game remaining for the Cowboys this season might be the Seahawks game. Now, if Dallas wins on Thursday night and Philadelphia loses against San Francisco and then Dallas beats Philadelphia and they both have 3 losses, then, maybe it's possible. Maybe the Seahawks surprise, us all and beat the Eagles. Maybe the Giants steal one. Maybe the Cardinals steal it. I mean, again, anything is possible in the NFL, but you saw the odds yourself. right now the Philadelphia Eagles have a 94% chance of winning the NFC East. And so that's just kind of the way things go right now. But again, the Cowboys are in an incredibly nice spot. I know it doesn't feel that way. I know it's frustrating because we would love to see them win the division, but the Cowboys are in a really advantageous spot because not only could they potentially manufacture their own bye in Week 18, as we talked about, but if the playoffs started today, which again is not the case, the Eagles would have the bye. The 49ers would play the 7 seed Seahawks, excuse me. The Lions would play the 6 seed Vikings. Those would be two division matchups, by the way, division rivalries, Seattle and San Francisco and Minnesota and Detroit. And the Cowboys would play the Atlanta Falcons. I think if you asked any team, right, if you asked the Niners, the Lions, the Vikings, the Seahawks, who they would want to play of all wild card round eligible teams in the NFC, everybody would say the Atlanta Falcons. And so the Cowboys would be in a position then, obviously, to not only be able to manufacture their own bye, so to speak, in Week 18, but have the friendliest draw, obviously, of all wildcard round teams in the conference. And then if you assume that things go chalk, which did not happen last year in the wildcard round. If you recall, the New York Giants beat the Minnesota Vikings. The Giants were a wildcard team. The Vikings were a division winner. And that's what sent Dallas to San Francisco in the divisional round. I think I speak for all of us in saying it would be nice to see the Cowboys avoid the 49ers, but if everything went chalk in the wild card round, which doesn't always happen, you would have the Niners obviously beating the Seahawks, the Lions beating the Vikings, and the Cowboys beating the Falcons. And that would mean that in the divisional round of the playoffs, the Cowboys would go to Philadelphia, not to San Francisco. And while I'm not going to sit here and say that I think the Cowboys would be favorites in Philadelphia, that it would be awesome or anything like that, I do like the Cowboys' odds of beating the Eagles more than I do the Niners, just based on recent history. I know that Dallas lost to both of them this season, but the Cowboys have contended and competed and defeated the Philadelphia Eagles way more often in recent memory than they have the 49ers, given that they haven't beaten the 49ers at all. So that is the state of the NFC playoff picture on Monday morning of Week 12. We'll obviously see what happens on Monday night. If you are interested, if you are looking for a rooting interest, it would work out better for the Cowboys if it isn't obvious for the Minnesota Vikings to lose. We're at a point now where we want to see all of the other wild card contending teams in the conference lose, so they give the Cowboys that much more room for error, so they give the Cowboys the ability to manufacture their own bye, to get players healthy, to take things the way they want. So go Bears. My dog's name is Bear. He was very quiet for this video, so he's a good boy. Shout out, of course, to Logic and Reason. So with all that being said, thanks so much for hanging out, everybody. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel, and we'll see you next time.